Hi, I'm Donna Ray.
And I'm Al Wadley.
Welcome to our podcast, Feldenkrais for Life.
In each episode, we will discuss ideas and experiences pertaining to the Feldenkrais method.
You're going to learn skills that will move pain to comfort, anxiety to ease, and we'll explore learning and how to spark creativity.
To learn more about Donna, visit her site at donnaray.com.
To find Al Wadley, go to achievingexcellence.com. Hi, Al.
Hey, Donna. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
You know, we're doing pretty well, and I actually had COVID recently, and I fully recovered. I know so many people these days, they're getting COVID and they're recovering. If your symptoms are mild or if they're difficult, whatever it is, you have to be patient. It's a challenge. In this conversation, whether you're the one with COVID, family member or friend has it, it brings up all these issues of how do you get back to normal? Which brings up this word, in my mind, resilience. How do we get back to health and how do we remain healthy?
Yes, resilience is a really key concept we work with in the Feldenkrais method, implicitly and explicitly. And that's the ability to recover. So if you get sick, you get the flu, or you get COVID, or you injure yourself in some way, you go down, you deal with it, and you want to have that ability to come back out of that and go back into your life and be healthy and not have that be a defining moment of yourself. And that aspect of resilience, be able to come out of that and come back into your healthy life and go back into your healthy lifestyle. Mm-hmm. What were some of the things you did in order to maintain your resilience to come out of that and come back into your healthy life?
The way that I talk to myself really made a difference. I'm usually a very energetic person. I have a lot of vitality. I stay really busy. The virus really made me tired. So I know from experiencing jet lag, actually, because I travel and teach quite a bit internationally, that I need to not think about doing things that are highly energetic when I'm in a state of recovery. Because the state of fatigue or illness or injury does not allow you to see yourself doing things that are highly energetic. And that can create a lot of fear. So being able to have a conversation with myself saying, look, the state that you're in right now is a state of recovery. You need to do all the things that are necessary for that. Drink lots of fluid, take supplements, eat the food that's going to give you vitality, and to lie on the floor and roll around and breathe. I could do slow, gentle movements and follow my breathing, and that was comforting. So to stay with how I was in the process and not to get ahead of myself was really helpful. And not that easy sometimes, but one of the ways I did that is I texted with a couple of friends who happened to have it at the same time. And so there was social support. There were 3 of us on a text thread, and we checked in every day several times. And that helped so much.
That's great. That's great. It's like a COVID support group.
Yeah.
I like what you said about how you talk to yourself and what you did. Our brains are so predictive in nature. The brain is always predicting what's going to be happening next, and it's always basing it on what's been happening. And I think sometimes it's easy for people to get caught up in the symptoms that they're having and start to wonder, predict, well, am I always going to be like this? Am I going to get out of this? And they start to kind of spiral around and doubt and having misgivings about their health and what's going to happen now. Am I going to get back to work? And so all this stuff can start happening. So I like what you said about that, going in and paying attention to your self-talk. And you didn't give up your health practices either. So you rolled around on the floor, you did your ATM, you reached out, you had community, you had connection with people who were going through the same thing, so you could support each other. Mm-hmm. And I assume you ate and drank and the best you could. And I understand sometimes appetite gets suppressed with that stuff, but so you could maintain your health practices as best you could, and you came out of it. So I think it's a really key thing is not getting caught up in that downward spiral that we can sometimes with health issues and start to come out of that and realize that, yeah, you can come out of it. You're not going to get stuck in that. Do you have that ability to recover and get your health back and you maintain your health practices, which is an interesting thing, maintaining health practices.
Yes. And the sooner you can behave in a healthy way, even if it's for short spurts, the better you feel. I was able to just get up and, do a little bit of house cleaning, for example, do a little bit, maybe 5 minutes, and then rest, or then it started to stretch out 10 minutes and rest. Every time I would engage in normal activity, normal without thinking about it, it made me feel healthy, even though I wasn't well yet.
That reminds me of an incident I had with a client a few months ago. And I gave her a lesson and she stood up, she started walking around and she said, "Wow, I'm walking like somebody who doesn't have any pain." And she says, "I could just walk like this. If I just walk like I don't have pain, then I'm going to have no pain or less pain." Yes. So if you do the behaviors that are healthy and comfortable for you, and you act like somebody who doesn't have pain or doesn't have this illness, those behaviors are going to be much more apt to create the predictions of health and well-being. So you start moving in that direction. Yeah.
So with awareness, we actually persuade our nervous systems toward health. It's attitude, it's persuasion, self-talk, activity, action. Awareness is the key to all of this. We have to notice what we're doing in our minds. And sometimes people become afraid about the future when you're not feeling at your best. Also, I felt some sorrow, which that often comes with a little bit of restricted breathing. In the past, if I've had bronchitis or bronchial thing, I feel sad. When that was happening, I was feeling it and aware of it at the same time and knowing that the physical exertion, whatever was going on with my physicality, was creating some sense of sadness.
That's interesting. So you're reframing the whole thing. And the frame you put around the event, whether it's an illness, an injury, or something like that, makes a big difference. So I had a sinus infection in the spring. And it was one, I think that I'd actually had a low-grade sinus infection for a long time in my left sinus. And it just kind of took over and had a full-blown sinus infection. And I realized what was going on. I was like, oh, so that was probably a low-grade sinus infection I had. This is my opportunity to really clear this stuff out. And so I felt like crap, but I worked really hard at working with my sinuses and cleaning them out and doing sinus rinses, a little bit of food-grade hydrogen peroxide, and all the other supplements you do to maintain and build your immunity. And in retrospect, I am so grateful that happened, because I cleared out the stuff that was in my left sinus. I can breathe freely in my left sinus. So now it's like, yeah, I can breathe really freely. And it feels really good to have access to my sinuses and have that whole area opened up. I thought it was just way my sinuses were formed.
Yeah, so you actually took care of the malaise and found that you're in better health than ever. And so it kind of brought your attention to what you needed to do for yourself.
Yes. And I hear this from health practitioners that, getting a cold or something like that is a way of just cleaning out your whole system, cleaning out your body, getting rid of the toxins, getting rid of the garbage in there. And so getting sick can be a really valuable thing because you clean out all the stuff that you don't need in your system and you come out the other end and you feel better. So I think the frame that we have around a situation that happens makes a big difference in how we go about dealing with it, how easily and how well we come out of it.
Yeah, I think the way our attitude, a perspective, reframing, as we say, or framing a situation, we learn from it, we become stronger in some ways, and we want to reverse the challenge to our system, whatever it may be. And that ability to reverse is a practice that we include in our movements in the Feldenkrais method.
Yeah.
So going one direction and then coming back, going another direction and coming back to center, starting to even fall and then regaining our balance. So reversibility in health is also a sign of resilience.
Yeah. Feldenkrais talked about that a lot. Reversibility being a really key aspect of health and really key aspect of our work. And I think that's rooted in his judo experience. That's a very key idea in his judo experience, to be able to lose your balance or take somebody else's balance, regain it, and be able to fall and roll and come back up, and have all these ways of being able to move through the world, be able to stop at any point in time, reverse the movement, come back, re-engage it. Mm-hmm. It's a really key idea. It's a really interesting experience that we explore in pretty much every Feldenkrais lesson, whether we're explicit about it or not. It's mm-hmm. in there, that idea of reversibility.
Yeah, and to play with that a little bit, if you're standing or you're sitting, just tilt your head in one direction and keep going and keep going and keep going. And sense when you feel as though you're going to lose your balance and then come back up. It's like, how far can you go with tilting your head in one direction before you feel as though you're going to fall over? It's like your system will bring itself back to upright when you start to find the boundary or the edge of your balance. And you can go one direction, the other direction, or you can go forward or you can go backwards. And you will only go to a certain point and then you come back to the middle. And by playing with this, it's instability, we could say. You play with the instability and then you come back upright. It starts to give you a sense of greater stability because you've taken yourself off center and then you come back on center. What are you noticing? I'm seeing you lean your head and go different directions and stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. Well, the more I did it, the further I could go without losing my balance. Initially, and I'm standing, by the way. Yeah. So I was doing this in standing, and I was sliding my hand down my leg and going down towards the floor. And I go to a point, and it's like, okay, that feels a little unstable. So I could reverse the movement. I can slide down again. And each time I was able to find a little bit more stability, a little more balance, and start to do something with my left leg and my left arm to help counter the shifting of the weight over to the right, like that. I was sliding to the right. So yeah, each time I got a little bit more information. So each time I reversed it, and each time I went back into it, get a little bit more information about how to maintain my balance. I can have the dynamic balance, dynamic stability, as we might call it in the Feldenkrais method, that ability to have stability while you're moving, which is kind of not what people think about. People think about, well, stability, that's like a rock. A rock is very stable.
But it's a process. It's actually an ongoing process every single day of our lives of going off balance and back to balance, stability and instability. And you were describing the creativity of regaining balance. So there's a lot of strategy that emerges when you start to play around with the concept in an actual physical way. I was noticing too, it's like you can tilt your head forward, back, side, whatever it is, and bend your spine a whole bunch, sort of like a rope in a way. It's like you can be very, very bendable. Or you can keep your spine more like a stick and lean over. And if those of you listening, if you're in a safe situation and you play with those two strategies of bending your spine, whether it be forward and looking down, that's bending. Or if you're looking up and bending back, that's bending and arching. Or you can do it to the sides. You can bend and bend and bend and then come back to the middle. Play with it in different directions and then do it more like you're a stick and see what happens. How far do you go when you're a stick before you have to come back to the middle? And my hunch is you're finding that the more bendable you are, the further you can go. Because when you're a stick, you topple over a whole lot faster.
It's funny. I was doing that and I found myself as a stick. I'm standing again. So I was tilting to the left and I found myself keeping my left leg stable and kind of pivoting over the hip joint. right leg was going out to the side and my stick spine is going over to the left. And so I was kind of like pivoting on the hip joint. Then I tried it just going on the leg, on the foot. So I'm going off to the side. And then I lost my balance really quickly. So there's interesting ways that we go about intuitively or explicitly or not aware at all about how we're going to maintain our balance. We do these little tricks to help ourselves.
Yeah, and so they just come up. You put yourself in a situation of exploration, then these different strategies and ways of doing things come up. So that's learning how to respond to situations too, quickly. And that's a skill that is learnable and can be practiced through the Feldenkrais method. And then the other things, that we were mentioning earlier is self-awareness, so that we understand movement, our thinking, our emotional integration, all these aspects of self, our thoughts and our actions, having positive relationships. We need them. We need to be in contact with other people all the time. And in times of need, we need it even more. So being aware of social support and how important and valuable it is. And then the other thing that was mentioned was self-care, like rolling around, using breathing, eating well, drinking, and then putting yourself in situations where you feel healthy again. And sometimes maybe slightly challenged. A little bit of challenge shows you that you're resilient and capable. So conversations like this, practices, they keep us going. They keep us healthy and capable.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have those little challenges in life. So I've recently started doing cold showers, and I learned a strategy from Wim Hof about how to do that. And it's helping me be able to do that and be successful at it and find it to actually be pretty comfortable and pretty pleasant to do. In fact, I didn't do one this morning and I kind of miss it. Never thought would happen.
Can you share with us a couple of your strategies that motivates you and makes it more comfortable?
Yeah. So what Wim suggested is putting like a hand in the cold shower, then your arm, and then your other hand and your other arm. So the limbs adapt more quickly to the cold. And then a foot and a leg, then the other foot and a leg, then your backside. And then it becomes very easy to bring the cold shower around to the front of your torso and on your face and your head. So allow the limbs to adapt first, and then it makes it easier for your torso to come in and adapt to the cold. And it becomes actually something that's quite pleasant to do.
When we find something that we want to do, we've decided that we want to do that thing that may be challenging or difficult. There are many strategies that we can start to apply. So walking up a hill, for example, is often really difficult for people. So if they walk up the hill a shorter distance in the beginning to remain pleasant and then go back down and repeat that, it can be more gratifying because you're not overtaxing your system. So it's sort of like putting one hand in, one foot in to begin with, and then you enlarge it. So then the next day you walk a little farther up the hill, but you still stay within your comfort zone to a certain extent. I mean, already walking up the hill is a challenge. Getting in a cold shower is a challenge. But smaller increments can create capability, confidence, even competence in a way.
It's like going to the border of your ability and kind of exploring around that edge. You don't really want to have break through or overdo it, or because that can lead to injury or overtaxation. Doing too much. It's not a good thing. We talk about that all the time in the Feldenkrais method as well. Work within your range of comfort. But it's cool to go up to the border and explore that, whether it's a cold shower or heat exposure, like getting into a really hot sauna, or some other situation like that, some kind of workout, like walking up a hill like you're talking about, or some kind of work project. And that is challenging, that offers a challenge, and that helps to build that resilience that we're talking about. So you can eventually walk up that hill, or I can take a cold shower for 5 minutes or whatever. So it builds that resilience. You can go into these intense situations and you can come out, and it helps to generalize into other areas of your life. So you get into other situations in your life that are challenging. You have that coding per se, in your nervous system that you can go into an intense situation and you can come back out of it because you're doing it under your control. You have that choice. And I think that's a big, important thing about what we're talking about now. Walking up a hill, taking a cold shower, super hot sauna, that it's under your own agency. It's under your control. You're choosing to do it, to expose yourself to that intense experience. And that is a different frame than just stuff happening to you.
You do feel like you're in control of the situation. And those experiences then help you cope when something is not in your control, because life is not in our control much of the time. We have to respond to what's presented to us. So by playing around with these situations like you're talking about, knowing when you're in control and when you're having to adapt, when you're having to adjust, when you know that you're being challenged, you're building skills of self-reliance and recovery, and that equals resilience. So I hope this conversation's been helpful to our listeners.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like this topic. We covered a lot of ground today.
Yes, we did. Yeah. Wonderful talking to you, Al. I've missed you lately.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we talked. Yeah, good conversation.
Yeah. Thank you very much for listening. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
If you'd like to follow up with a question, send an email to info@feldenkrais4life.com. We would love to hear from you.
You can learn more about us on our websites.
You can find Al at achievingexcellence.com.
You can visit my site to join my classes and reach out to me for private lessons online or in my Longmont studio. You'll find my store, the Feldenkrais store, there as well. We can purchase books, audio products, and videos. Donna's website is donnaray.com.
And if you visit my website, you'll find that I'm offering individual sessions, group classes in the Feldenkrais method, mentoring groups, professional Feldenkrais training program information, and recorded lessons.
Thank you again so much for joining us. I look forward to you hearing us next week.
Bye now.
Bye.